Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another exciting episode of Daily December 2017. This is day 8. I am still a day behind. Um, Despite the fact that I don't seem incredibly enthusiastic right now, I'm very, very sick. Withdrawal is hitting me very, very hard today. But I wanted to get a video out, and I don't want it to be serious. Um, like the last video I made, well, I think was really important and talked about an important topic. I'd like to talk about something a little bit more lighthearted, just to see if I can get out of my brain. So, because I am in a relatively dark place right now, withdrawal is not fun. Um, so I want to talk about being a DM or GM or however you want to call it. Um, and I specifically want to talk about something I'm actually working on right now for the DMs Guild, uh, and the problem I see it solving. I was recently asked by a friend who was starting a new campaign in a new system that they were learning, and they're running an open legend, and I run an open legend RPG every other weekend on the Zelda Universe channel. It's a Zelda RPG, or rather, it's open legend, but it set in the Zelda universe. Anyway, so I've been running Open Legend now for I don't know a few months, and I've been kind of learning it for I don't know close to a year now, maybe even longer than that. As soon as I heard that Matt Mercer and Ed Greenwood had kind of consulted on it, I wanted to look into it, and I really like the idea of Open Legend. I think it's a really solid system. Without in my humble opinion, without too many flaws, to be honest. Um, there's no resurrection mechanic that I'm aware of in it. So if you are playing a high fantasy setting and you're trying to like translate your D&D characters into Open Legend, you may have to custom write a boon or something for that. But that was my phone. Um, and it can seem a little bit like the absolute best way to learn how to play or how to DM Open Legends is to do it. Um, while the website is really really great and gives you everything you need to be able to play, um, a lot of it doesn't make sense until you actually do it. And I don't. That's not really a fault of the system as much as it's just how the system works. It looks complex when it's actually very, very simple. Um, yeah, anyway, um, this person's trying to start a new campaign and is trying to come up with a reason why an adventuring party would get together and start adventuring. And this is a common issue that DMs have, especially if you're doing your own custom content. If you have pre-written material, they will have what's called a player hook, which gives the players an incentive to actually want to run the story. And if you're some of these pre-written adventures, especially the stuff by like Wizards of the Coast, will have multiple player hooks so that you can kind of pick and choose, and maybe different characters have different hooks, different reasons why they're doing it. And I think that makes for really interesting storytelling and really interesting gameplay when you have a bunch of different characters that are all doing the same thing together and working together, but for very different reasons. Um, and that can create conflict. And the idea of conflict and resolution is the basis of entertainment. Um, uh, if you go back to music, music is based on dissonance and harmony. You create dissonance and you resolve it into harmony, and people like that. And that is what every single song that has ever been written, ever will be written, is all on this very basic principle of introducing dissonance, which are notes that don't quite sound as nice together, and resolving them into harmony, which are notes that sound very nice together. The same is true about storytelling. You introduce conflict and then you resolve it in some way. Sometimes the resolution creates more conflict. Sometimes the resolution is a negative resolution where the conflict ends in a very negative way. But you have a conflict, then you resolve it, and then you have another conflict, and sometimes you will have smaller conflicts that get resolved quicker, and then you'll have more major conflicts that take much longer to resolve, and that's the basics of storytelling is conflict and resolution. And so if you're starting your own custom campaign, it can be a little bit daunting to try and come up with a reason for people to start adventuring. Once your players start playing, the interactions between the players and stuff like that and their own personal motivations will really drive the story. And you, as a dungeon master or game master, can really just kind of direct the chaos as opposed to orchestrating. Like, a lot of people think GMs have this, control and everything. We don't. We simply kind of point the cannon in a direction and let the players fire it over and over again until they do something. So we guide the chaos more than we do really control anything. But that initial starting point can be very, very difficult. And so the product that I'm creating, I'm not really going to describe it right now, but I'm hoping to have it on the DM's Guild for purchase. I'd like to have it there before Christmas, or at the very least by the end of December. And it'll be the first title that I've released that will actually have a price point. And there's two reasons why I do this. One, this is the largest piece of writing that I've created for the DM's Guild since I started writing for them, and I believe that it does have value. And two, I'm actually very interested in the DM Adepts program. I have a platinum bestseller on there. On the DM's Guild, I have a silver bestseller on the DM's Guild. And I'm regularly getting more and more people purchasing my stuff that I put up there for free. And one of the tips that they have in the frequently asked questions for the DM's Guild is, how do I become an adept? And they mention, well, publish stuff. We're going to look at stuff that people publish and put a price on it. We're really not interested in people that don't think that what they create is worth something. So this is going to be my experiment. It is, it's not going to be a $20 item or something like that. I haven't decided on the price point, but, it's going to be based around helping to start a very wide range of campaigns that can be set in the Forgotten Realms or really any other campaign setting that you would want to. It's going to be very non-specific as far as genre and everything. And, yeah, it's going to be designed to help DMs and players really get started, because a lot of times that's the most difficult part of the campaign, is getting started. Once it's going, again, just kind of point the chaos in a specific direction, and let the players really fuel the story, and you can have amazing, wonderful campaigns based on that. But that initial starting point, that's why so many adventures start in a tavern where, you're all in a tavern and you're looking to make some money. So you thought adventuring would be a good way to do that. So I have a few tips, because I've never used the adventure starting in a tavern trope, except for once, and that was in a parody game. Excuse me. I think I pulled something in my back sneezing. That goes to show you how screwed up I am right now. Um, the only time I've ever used that trope has been in a parody game. And I specifically use that trope to parody it and to make light of the fact that it's so overused. Um, so when I start a campaign, um, the thing that I like to start with is a broad idea of the world itself. Not like, every single city and every single town, but I like to think, okay, genre. I will start with a kind of genre. What kind of genre do I want this game to be? Do I want it to have a steampunk feel to it? Do I want it to be like high fantasy or dark fantasy or fantasy horror or gothic horror? Do I want it to be futuristic? Do I want it to be um, set in the far, far, far past? Like pre-Bronze Age, that's kind of where I start. Is I go, I want a genre, and then I start defining the world based on that genre. Like for Kingdom of the Kale Isles, I wanted a seabound campaign where the players could be pirates if they wanted to be. And I wanted to have that feel of these different islands and these basically different worlds that are connected via water. And so that's what I started with was, okay, I want this seafaring campaign, so it's going to be a bunch of different islands. Then I wanted some sort of conflict in the world. Not a conflict involving the players, but the world itself should not be perfect. The world itself should not be a paradise or anything like that. Or if it is a paradise, dystopia works a heck of a lot better than utopia for conflict. So I come up with the basics of a conflict, which, due to the fact that my players in in the Kingdom of the Kale Isles haven't actually discovered the entirety of the conflict, I'm not going to go into huge details. But I sat down and I said, you know what, I want an oppressive government to be a part of it. So I created the Eladrin to kind of throw a trope on its head. I have these elves who are normally supposed to be these very wise, intelligent beings, and I turn them into this incredibly xenophobic, totalitarian government that ruled through control of magic, because that was kind of a part of the Eladrin in general, is their magic affinity. And then I came up with individual hooks for each character. Each character came up with a backstory. I gave them the world. I fleshed out a little bit more, like I fleshed out the political system of the Eladrin, and I fleshed out kind of like what the races, how they kind of fit into that world. And I gave that information. It's basically what's called a campaign Bible. I gave that information to my players and said, go ahead and create a character that would fit in this world. I also explained how the different classes kind of fit into this world. And we kind of went from there. And the players would go, well, what if I wanted to do this? And I'd go, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, let me find a way to fit it into my world, because everything has to fit in here. So if you have something that you like and it's not overpowered or something, I'm going to do my best to fit it in there. And that's how I do things. And for every game that I run, every custom game that I run, this is how I do it every single time. I start genre, then I start with kind of the specifics of the area that they're going to be in, specifically thinking about what kind of government is there? Is it lawless? Is there a strong government? Is there a weak government? Is it a corrupt government? Do bandits run things? Are there city states that are warring between each other? Those are important things that will influence the characters and their motivations. Do I need to come up with an entire like line of succession or something like that? Absolutely not. To be blunt, I just chose the name of the real name of my villain, my big villain for the first big story arc of my custom campaign this week, and we've been playing for I think 2 years. The villain has been there for 2 years, but he just had a title. He was called the Council of One. He didn't actually. Nobody knew his name, and having those little bits of mystery are perfectly fine. There is a character in my campaign called the Captain. He has a name, but he's chosen to not tell it to anyone but a very select few. And so the players only know him as the captain. And that's perfectly fine. Like, you don't, like, if you're not good with names, just give people titles. And say that, there's a term in theater and film called hanging a lantern on it, where if you do something, uh, if you point out an obvious flaw, then you kind of acknowledge to the audience, this isn't us making a mistake. We're doing this on purpose, and it helps the audience to suspend their disbelief and do it. Like, having transporter systems that malfunction all the time is kind of a big thing with Star Trek. If they were to hang a lantern on it, well, you know, transporter systems are still new or something like that, or transporter systems have always been known to be very finicky and things like that. That would be hanging a lantern on it. They're going, yes, we know that we use this as a plot device over and over and over again. We're going to hang a lantern on it. We're going to specifically mention that so you know that we're doing this on purpose. So anyway, so that's how I start my campaigns. Start with a genre, start with big picture kind of stuff, and then go to the characters. Like the little stuff, like the names of towns and NPCs and stuff like that, that can all develop during your first game or first couple of games and stuff like that. They have wonderful name generators online. If you're not good at doing it on the fly, just have a window open and click on name generator and go, oh, that's their name. Jot it down so you don't forget it like I do all the time. Um, and and just go for it. Once you have the genre is going to direct how things go. If you were playing a horror-based game, like a Lovecraftian horror setting, bad things are going to happen. And so as a GM, just by defining that genre, it takes a little bit of the work out of it for you, because Lovecraftian, the old gods are going to show up and do weird things, or sanity is going to be tested, or weird things are going to happen, and the players are going to understand that. Or if you're doing like a Wild West theme, government doesn't really have a place in the Wild West. It's all frontier law and stuff like that, and so you're going to have bandits that take over towns and stuff like that. And so just that defining of the genre will really help you to start building a realistic world. And then going with the other big thing, which is the government, which is, the greater world that they're going to be going in. Just by choosing a type of government, you don't have to fully flesh it out like I do, but simply choosing a type of government where they live in a monarchy. They're going to be adventuring inside of a kingdom, and it's ruled over by a king, and then the various areas are ruled over by dukes and duchesses and lords, and all the way down to just your little everyday. And so it's a nobility based system. Or I have a mageocracy. Whoever has the most magical power is the person that's in control. And so control is kind of conferred through who has the coolest magic. Or it could be a bunch of small city states that have trading agreements between each other, and some of them fight between each other. All of these are very valid forms of government. And by just getting that little definition, like if you have multiple city states, that's a great way to start dealing with stuff, because you might be hired by one city. You might get the players hired by one city state to go spy on another one. And then if they get caught, the first city state might disavow them, and they have kind of an A-team thing going on. Or it might be that they were hired by a small village that doesn't belong to any of the city states, and it brings them, it accidentally brings them into conflict with two of them because those two are at war, and that war just happened to accidentally spill into the tiny little village that these guys were just adventuring in because they were just starting out. Those little, those big details. And again, you don't need to have names or anything. Again, there are name generators. You don't have to sit there and go, create a line of succession or anything. Just have a basic idea of, this is the genre I want. This is kind of the government, or this is how the world works. Maybe it's an anarchy, maybe it's government, maybe it's frontier law, whatever you want. But having kind of a rules system based on your genre of how the world is supposed to work really, really helps. And then let the players start playing in it. And as they start defining their characters, and as they start getting to know who they are and what they want to do, then you can start developing a more big picture, working them towards the idea of, yes, they're going to eventually fight the big baddie and, save the world, blah, 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 blah. That's way, way down the line. But starting off, have them make up a backstory that fits in the world that you create. Let them create the world for you. Tell them, it's this is going to be a steampunk campaign. So think like Victorian era steampunk type technology. And you guys, it's going to be set amongst a bunch of city states that each has an elected governor. Go for it. And then the players will go, well, can I, do this? I want to be a noble in one of, I want to be an elected official in one of the city states. Okay, cool. We'll do that. Go ahead and however you want this city state to run, go for it. You can design that portion of the world, and you can let your players design parts of the world for you. Well, I want to be part of a nobility, so can one of the city states actually be, a nobility ruled with a king and everything? Perfect. Go ahead, come up with a name for the king. Come up with your relation to the king. You can be a peasant, you can be a noble, whatever you want. Go ahead and do that. That's your, whatever you want your character backstory to be, go for it. And when all these pieces start coming together, they eventually create a world. And when you take into account, okay, well, the monarchy is going to react differently to elected government officials and things like that, and the democracies are going to, have things to say about the monarchy, because democracies in general are based on freedom, and monarchies are a lot of times based on the idea of divine rulership, where the king has some sort of divine right to be ruler, or their bloodline has something in it that makes them, that's going to create conflict, because you're going to have, freedom versus, belief fighting against each other. Those are all things that create conflict, and that could become the big thing. It could be that, the king that runs this kingdom is actually, a demon that's basically been reincarnating himself into younger and younger bodies over and over again to make it look like there's a succession of kings, when in all actuality he's been running this this country forever and he's been trying to take over the world or something. Or it could be the democracy that is preaching about freedom isn't free at all, and it's actually run by a small group of people behind the scenes that rig all the elections so that the people think they're voting people into power, but in all actuality they're not, and everything is controlled very, very closely. It could be a billion different things, but your players are creative. Let them help build your world. It doesn't have to all be on your shoulders. So that's how I create my game. I'm going to be starting a brand new custom campaign, and that's what's going to be happening with this one. I'm going to write up a campaign Bible. I've already started doing a little bit of it, which is basically going to define the genre. It's going to define the basics of the political situation that these people are going to be dealing with, and then I'm going to give that to my players and go have fun. Whatever kind of character you want to play, come up with a reason that character would exist in this kind of a world, and then we'll go from there. I never want to limit players because of the campaign. It's like, well, I really wish I wanted to play this really cool, gunslinger like Han Solo, and there aren't any guns in this campaign. Okay. Well, if I really don't want to do guns, then you can use a hand crossbow, and you can still be a very Han Solo type character. We will create a character for you that works in that particular way, or we will modify a character so that you can be, this kind of real lucky, real cocky guy who's real good at, and we can find a way to make that work. Well, then certain things that have to happen. Good, go for it. Let it, write your story, create the character that you want to play, and then we get all these people together and kind of just let them interact with each other. And those interactions create conflict, and conflict eventually gets resolved, and you get this cycle of conflict and resolution. That is what storytelling is. That's what makes it fun. So, anyway, like I said, withdrawal sucks. I feel really, really bad. But I hope you guys find this interesting at the very least. If you guys do have questions about running campaigns, starting new campaigns, or anything like that, feel free to leave them in the comments below or tweet them at me. I'm at Trainer Jody. You can even DM them to me if you don't want your players finding out. My DMs are actually open, so you don't have to follow me, and I don't have to follow you back for you to send me DMs on Twitter. Anyone can do it. If I don't follow you, it may take me a little while to realize that you sent me a DM, because it doesn't always tell me, but I will answer it, and I'll do what I can. And if you guys are interested in me doing like a DM tips type series on this channel, let me know. Otherwise, like I said, that's all for me right now. I may try and catch up by recording another episode tonight, but I sincerely doubt it because this withdrawal is just really kicking me. So I'll try and catch up tomorrow if the withdrawal is any better. But that's all for me today. See you guys tomorrow. All right? Bye-bye.